Welcome to the THWACKcamp session, Tips and Tricks. I'm Destiny Bertucci, one of the head geeks of SolarWinds, and joining me today is Technical Content Manager, Kevin Sparenberg.
Thanks, Des. So it's literally the Des and Kevin show right now, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more. All right, Kevin, we are constantly on the road talking with customers, enjoying your use cases about all the products of which that you love, helping them to solve issues along the way. So, plus, we make a pretty good team.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we done this session at THWACKcamp and at SWGs, and it's been...
Man, if you add all that up, I don't even know, but I'd say
lot.
this is probably the third time for the THWACKcamp itself, so we better take this one up a notch.
Well, we can hit them with a classic favorite all the way at the end, so stay tuned for that.
We'll see about that one.
Okay, we'll try.
Okay, so we're going to be demoing some tips and tricks that can help fine-tune your SolarWinds environment to your needs. Kevin's going to be showing you some awesome Orion SDK love, and I will be showing you how to use the advanced configuration mode to make sure you're addressing your Orion platform needs fully. There's nothing worse than monitoring and actually leaning over to the next person and being like, you can just ignore that one.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, no. Let's get those little things taken care of and get your installation in tip-top shape.
That's really what we're all here to do all the time, whether it be at THWACK, online, at the THWACK forums, or at the SWGs. We want to make sure our customers' environments are running at full speed so they can do their tasks knowing that SolarWinds has their back.
Oh, 100%. And I'm ready to get started. So
am I.
Kevin, I believe you're going to get us started with a little Orion SDK.
I will get started, but first thing is to remember to ask questions in the chat window, or better yet, let us know your best tips and tricks as we go on. So I guess now, on to the demos. We're going to start with a little bit from the SDK. The thing I really like about the Orion platform, I've said it for many years, is that it's as customizable as you want it to be. Its superpower is that it can be customized. I mean, you can do that with maps, you can do it with the custom resources, you can embed HTML, whatever you really want to do. For me, the big thing is getting the data back out of the environment, because we're collecting stuff all the time. So being able to actually say, you know what, this is exactly what I want to see, and I need to see it in a format like this, and I need to make sure that's on a dashboard so that my CTO, my CIO, whomever is aware of it and can consume that information at a quick jump. That's what I want to have.
Which that's like a lot of what a lot of the companies do not actually have within there is that customization. Yeah. And I think they're vital to think about in the custom properties, and we'll go over a little bit more here in a few. Yeah. But the actual custom properties themselves help you to actually kind of bring this alive, right? Yeah. Like it helps you to hone it into exactly what you're trying to do, whether that be security policies, user acceptance policies, the way that you're doing your infrastructure, your network standardization. These actually help you to create something that's not just washboard, right? Like this is going to mean something to you, and that's what we want you to feel when you're looking at this, is that it's meaningful, you're doing something, and everything is actionable.
Yeah, because let's be serious, out of the box, proof of concept, all that's perfectly fine. That's kind of how you determine, is this going to work for me? Is this actually a solution that's going to work for my environment? I've not actually found one where we're not going to give you 90% of what you're looking for, but that doesn't mean that last 10% is going to be there. So what we have available to us is stuff via the SDK, specifically in this format, what we call the custom query. So if we look at the screen now, this is just kind of a generic home screen. This is move some stuff around. It's not the default layout. We've got a little custom HTML in the top right corner here, but maybe this is fine for the network engineer. Maybe this isn't fine for the server admin. Maybe the server admin doesn't care about my WAN errors and discards. Maybe they care about how my Linux servers are doing or how this is doing. And there are ways you can filter this down. You know, you can make a copy of the all nodes and then filter that, and then a copy of that, and then filter that, and it gets kludgy.
Right.
And sometimes it takes up more real estate that's necessary. In a NOC view, you kind of want as little white space.
Exactly. You want it to mean something to you. You don't want to like look up there and be like, why is that there?
You want a quick glance and know. It's like, that's exactly what that is. So one of the things I've done here is I've actually have a little scratch pad area so that I can work with something, and I recommend a lot of people do this. If you're kind of thinking about building one of these, don't take the ones you're working on and then just start messing with them. Build a new place, a new view, put it in your menu system if necessary, and then that's where you can have your play area. Now for me, I've got some in here already. So these are a couple quick ones. These are custom queries, all three of them. So we've got Polar Performance. This is a system that actually has a primary and a secondary polling engine, an additional polling engine, and then some information about capacity. I couldn't come up with a clever word, so I called it capacity stuff. It still works. And then CBQOS drops, which we talk about all the time. So this is a lot of information. Now, this kind of shows three different areas. Like The top is for the monitoring engineer. They care about how the environment itself is doing. The second one is more about that virtualization engineer, more than likely. And you can filter about, well, how long until I actually run out of CPU? How long until I run out of memory? And the drops is for the network engineer. So we really kind of see everything here. This is not the ideal for a knock view, though.
Right.
Because they appeal to different personas. If you actually want to care just about your monitoring health, maybe you take this polar performance one, you break it into 2 or 3 smaller ones. Now, the real question is, where'd all this data come from? Now, we're storing all of this. This is all in the Orion database. You can find it in with custom SQL if you want to write that. I like doing it in SWCL, though, and I'm going to show you why. So I actually already have taken this, and you hit edit, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Literally, it is just a big SQL query. And thankfully, we have that available in the SWCL Studio. So the SWCL Studio is a free download. Go into GitHub, find the Orion SDK, download, and install it. This actually has a bunch of information that's really actually clever. So if you want to find information about Orion nodes, you can just go down and say, oh, I am interested in Orion nodes. And just like the SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, yes, you can actually build your query and execute it, and then here's all of your node information. It basically behaves just like SQL, but it maintains the relationships. It understands how custom properties are related. It understands that interfaces are children of nodes, and applications are on.
And something that we always talk about too, especially with some of our customers, is the reason why we like to involve the Orion SDK when you start getting into that intermediate advanced level of trying to dive in and kind of fine tune to, is because it understands the relationships, and that's vital if you're trying to ever delete, create, and do things, because you may not know some of the views, the relationships of which that's coming across there, and this helps to hone those in and to keep them accurate so that you're not causing an issue within your database.
Yeah, because let's be serious. If I need to literally just update a caption, let's say I just need to update a caption, I wouldn't tell someone you can't do that in SQL. You totally can do that in SQL. That's an easy change. It has no relationship. If I say, hey, you need to delete a node, I say no. If you're going to delete a node, either do it through the web UI, or better yet, do it through the SWCL Studio, the SolarWinds query language, and the SDK, because we know that when you delete that record, that we also need to go into interfaces, delete the associated interfaces, go into applications, delete those, find any related custom properties, purge them, and we do all that stuff. If you don't do that in the actual database itself, you'll have a lot of orphans, and sometimes those orphans are not really easy to clean up, even with the database maintenance, because it doesn't know to look for those relationship entries.
Because some of it will be missing, and it'll be the end parts of it, so it's looking for the beginning part of the actual node to delete. It's not there, but then it all of a sudden doesn't know how to attract to the interface / volume / CBQ drops, like all these little informations that come across there. So it's very vital to actually kind of play around with these. What I also like to do is, like, for your SQL administrators too, is that they can come in here and look at the actual Orion's SDK, and they'll look through here and see the relationships, and a lot of times that helps them, right? Because then they see that this is actually the relations of the database and understand how it's flowing and which ones are going through there, and they can also help you with your database maintenancing and things that are going on. A lot of what me and Tom have talked about too in some of our sessions.
Yeah, and Tom and me as an accidental DBA, I played, and I shouldn't have. I used to play in the database a couple of years ago when I was still a customer, because I know, but I didn't know any better. And this didn't exist yet. So that was all I had. Now that this exists, I'm like, this is literally 2 lines of code I can just write and hit execute, and it's done. It's not going to the database, finding 15 tables and deleting all the stuff out. Anyway, went a little far afield with that, but this is why you want to take time and actually learn the SDK. You don't have to use all of it. You don't even have to use 1/10 of it. If there's one thing in here you really want to use, I'll show you the one I recommend. I want to make sure that you understand how to get data out of this for display purposes. So if we go back to this one, this is actually the query that I'm running to pull the polling engine information. Now, this is actually based on a post that Leon wrote years ago as custom SQL, put it on THWACK, and I said, that's nice, but it's missing a couple things I think I want. So I changed it. Sorry, Leon. And then reposted and said, this is how I changed some of these things. So for me, this is a full environment. So this is all of the Orion products on one system. This can be tweaked slightly. Like here, I talk about the number of SAM components. If you don't have SAM, this kind of falls through the floor.
Right.
But if you have NPM, you can do most of this. If you have anything with Orion, you can definitely get the stuff about your uptime, your total number of monitored elements, total number of monitored nodes, interfaces, stuff like that. This is really helpful for me because I want to be able to visualize. So I want to be able to have like a quick glance and say, yes, that's where I need to spend my time today. So here it's very simple, but one thing I really want to point out are these two lines here. So I can get the words. I can get raw data. That's never a problem. We can get raw data out of anything. Being able to actually make that make visual sense and actually be able to kind of extend that out and make it consumable for, well, not just the Orion admin, but anybody, that's kind of the trick. For me, this is how you do it. So if you notice the syntax here, it's underscore, link for, underscore, and underscore, icon for, underscore. And all you do is give this a relative URL that you can find from, in this case, the status LED name, or the details URL, which is on almost every element now, thankfully, in the architecture. So you can just look for a details URL field, and it'll probably take you to what you need. And what that does is when you actually go back, that's how we have the colored icon to give me the status. So I know my additional polling engine right here is running not brilliant. It's got some problems, so I need to look into that. But this is what I really like. The hover overs, the hover overs work. If you actually use that details for, or that details for URL, and you also use, or the details URL and the link for URL, and just assign it back to the name, you get this information. This can be put on any of these elements, or it can be put on technically all of them all the way across.
And something that I like too, though, is as you can see there, we can see the custom properties that show up there too. And the reason why that's important is because when you're using these and you're adjusting them and need to look at this, that little pop-up gives you the analysis in its whole breathing live kind of address form of like what it's doing. And that's very valid when it comes to custom properties because it's easy to visualize and see too if something's missing and it's not showing up in a group we're doing. So that pop-up with the custom properties is great.
Yeah, I like that because there's a lot of people, myself included, who actually used a couple of kind of sets of custom properties, like the email team, like which team do I email when there's a problem, and is this production or dev or test? So if it's either of these two, throw it away. Because if I actually had a problem here and it showed yellow or critical and said, we've got a major meltdown, and it said dev, I'd be like, not my problem. Right. And I make sure the alert doesn't fire on it. So this one's just kind of a summary. The better one, in my opinion, though, is the one for the capacity. And the reason I like the capacity one is same thing as before. It's just a query. It's not really that complex. Now, this is where the accidental DBA in here kind of messes with me because I don't do joins excessively well. I can fake them. The SDK supports inner, outer, left and right joins, does support some level of unioning, but with certain restrictions. All of that's on the GitHub page. You can read about that. What I like here is we've got a lot of these metrics we're collecting. We put capacity planning in, I don't know, a couple of versions ago, like last year, I believe. And that means we'll tell you, hey, this is about the time you're going to run out. But it's always been node-based. Right. It's been this node will probably run out in this number of days. Or we have a resource somewhere that says, oh, hey, here's the memory, and it just shows the memory. And here's another one that says, this one just shows the processor, this one just shows the disk space. And I said, that's okay, but that's not what I need, especially in a highly virtualized infrastructure. What I want is I want to know what CPU and memory is doing now for all of it. Right. So that's what this is. Literally, it's get the node name, get the current value, calculated averages. Now, some of the language here with the A average and the B average, I had to ask people what that was. I asked on THWACK and I asked internally, but I figured out what that was, and now this will all be shared. And this is, I've got everything here. So the node name, and it supports the as, where you get to rename fields. I go crazy and put brackets on everything and put the as words everywhere. You don't have to, you can follow the ANSI standards.
But for me, that's like standardization and should be done.
It's the same way I do it as well, because this makes it easier for me to read, and if I share it with somebody, it's easier for them to consume. So same thing as before, I wanted a link for the node name, so there we are, underscore link for underscore node name. Small sidebar, link for does not have to be camel cased like this, it can be any case. I do it this, again, standardization. But what I like about it is, okay, we've got this interface caption. But let's say we only wanted it for stuff in one data center, like this is a NOC view. So I can say, well, we've already got a where clause. So our entities are Orion nodes where they have some type of capacity information. And instance caption like East. Now it also uses the SQL wildcards. So now if I rerun this, now we have only East. Now what I like about that is now that we know it works here.
Right.
Yeah, an icon for node name, we're not going to bring the icon into this view. Icon for, we're not going to bring this stuff in.
But the fields are populated, so we know
you
that
can
it's
actually
active
get a
and it's
check.
working.
Yeah. So like our vendor icons, that's what these are. Like 9 happens to be Cisco, 311 happens to be Windows. I know this because I've honestly just worked with the system way too long. But I can actually take that now, go back, just hit edit, go in here, select all, paste, and that's it. Now if I submit, fingers crossed, this should show me just things in East. The other thing that's nice is it allows pagination. So I only have 8 pages of this. That means there's a lot of things going on in the East data center, which is fine. But let's say I need to make it a little better. All right. So let's go back to the code. Let's take out the East. Now I'm doing this for a reason. You'll just have to bear with me. So if I take this and instead I can edit again. So now I want to enable the search. So remember I put the double % signs in there? You notice right here it says, oh, well, put $ curly bracket search string as a macro. So I put that in between here. And because we want to search everything and not just East anymore, I'm actually going to strike it out of here, or I'll actually do the smart thing, comment it. And then rows per page, still 5. All right, so now it's reset and we've got everything.
Right.
But if you noticed,
Now you have the search.
so if I actually only care about Active Directory domain services, there we go. This is a great way you can take and build exactly what you're looking for. Now, this can be done for this. You can also use our new reporting engine, build reports, put report widgets on pages. If you build a perf stack that is perfect for your virtualization infrastructure, put it on your virtualization summary page. Make sure people can actually get to it and can see it, because that's the important part.
Definitely, and something to also let them know on this Scratchpad summary. I use these a lot. I don't name mine Scratchpad. It's usually test something, but I keep those up there because if I'm working on something with a customer and we're wanting to make sure that people are viewing it and it actually is, you know, the customization that they're looking for, then it's available for them to look at, and then they can look at the view and kind of play around with it and give you instant feedback while you're working on the page. And it's not anything that's live, it's not anything, and it's known that, hey, we're working on something cool here and we need your opinion. So same thing with you guys right now in chat. If you have an opinions on this or you want to know any more questions about something else that you can do, these are the custom SQL resources, correct?
These are custom, these are search queries.
Search queries,
So
yes.
what you actually do is, now I already had them on this page, but if you need to build one from scratch, you add widgets, and then I just search for query, custom query, drag, drop, done, and done, and then you can edit.
So there you go. And that's what I wanted to make sure you guys knew exactly like where you could grab that one from. But once again, please ask us questions if there's other things that you're wanting to know within the Orion SDK. This is a very great way that you all at home can like follow along with us and then also try to make this your own, right? Like play around with it, create your own little scratch pad.
And worst case scenario is you get lost. That's why we're going to provide references to all of the ones we're showing you here. They're going to be in the show notes. A lot of these examples I put online on THWACK that I've come up with. And I was like, this is a fun one. That's a fun one. We should do it like this. There's examples everywhere. Don't be afraid to ask. That's the great thing about the THWACK community. It's like, I'm like 95% sure it's this way. So just ask a question. This is what I got. Here's a picture of what I received, but I wanted this. Someone's probably going to have an answer for you.
All right, so since we've talked so much about custom properties previously, I kind of wanted to dive into a demo of my own, if you don't mind, to take over a little bit. What I want to talk about is the custom properties and how they relate to cutting out that noise. I want to make sure that you guys are understanding how to use these in the best line. And then I also want to kind of go through the advanced config modes so that we can understand those setting pages, because as we advanced more with SolarWinds and the Orion platform, we really are going to be focusing in on those advanced settings so that you're able to dive in and kind of cater to your needs so that you can see and visualize everything that you need and take away what you don't. So you're not like leaning over being like, ignore that. We don't want you to do that.
No, as little as possible. Scratchpad, they can look over. It's like, don't worry, that's not going to alert.
All right, so I'm going to get in here real quick. Let's start off with the advanced configuration access. For you guys to be able to get here, you can go into your customer success area and just put in advanced configuration access and it'll bring you to this page. The reason for that is because these little links that you're seeing right now, they're not available within your admin or your advanced settings or anything that's across there.
Yeah, you can go into all settings in the admin settings you're used to seeing and scroll up and down, left and right, and you'll never come across these. This is not us trying to like obfuscate the information. It's because this is some very deep level stuff that we really only most of the time want you to change at the request of support. However, there are a lot of settings in here that are very useful for you to understand because they'll give you a better understanding of how the platform as a whole works.
Definitely, and the reason why I want to show you these is because at this level, when you're looking for the tips and tricks, you're already out of the box and you're very basic and you're pretty familiar with what you're doing with your own admin rights and what you can kind of adjust and customize. Yep. But what we're going to get into is that there's some server side and global specific information that you need to kind of hone in to make sure that this is your environment and not just kind of a blanket fill. And we want to make sure that you have that customization level. So follow along with us so you can kind of at least get a grasp. And sometimes people, when they see this screen, they're like, this has been here. So,
it's also very deep. There's a lot of content, which is why there's a search.
I don't even know all of the stuff that comes across there, but I just like ask Dev. No, I'm just kidding. We're all right, so.
Or me, ask Des.
All right, so I'm going to go into the global one first.
Okay.
All right, so when you open this up, you're going to start seeing these divided into kind of, I like the divide and conquer realm, right? So if you don't understand what it is, probably don't change a level here, right? The only way you can get these sections to actually go back, I believe, is still with the configuration wizard to reset settings.
Down at the bottom.
And then you can, and then, but here's the thing, is that when you do the reset all to the default, that's going to definitely hit everything back. So you need to make sure everybody who's ever been to this screen, or because since you have network guys, you have server guys, you always want to make sure that you verify with anybody because that can be the difference in an alert storm versus not having an alerts. So that's something to bear in mind. You're literally changing the intervals.
This is the equivalent. Before the admin screen is kind of like, changing your spark plugs or maybe changing, the flywheel or something like that. This is literally changing the engine compression ratios.
Right.
This is deep dive stuff. There are several things in here that I think could probably be surfaced that we can discuss and say these are not insanely difficult. These are ones that you can easily see and understand. But this will intrinsically change the way that your Orion system works.
Definitely, and this is the one that it's going to make sure that you're kind of driving what you're wanting to drive here. All right, so like the application dynamic mapping that we have up here, dependency mapping, we can have these, and these are the checks. So over to the right-hand side, you're able to see what these interval levels are going to be changed to. Now, when you see the polling connection, quality enabled, and polling enabled, polling on Orion servers, the initial wait interval. These are things that helps you with like connections, how things are going, the WAN speeds, things of that nature. I've heard some people when they're doing things like satellite and they have very low bandwidth and some of the things that was coming across, they were able to adjust and fine tune this so that they're still able to get information back and forth. So this is things for you to think about on that level.
Yeah, if you want to see exactly how complex it is, check that box for polling on Orion servers, because let's be serious, your Orion server is going out pretty much every minute of every day, talking to everything everywhere. The number of links, there's a reason it's disabled by default.
Right.
If you want to get crazy, check it, look at it, come back, turn it back off.
Exactly. Just make sure that you turn it back off. All right, and so as we follow down through here, the one that I wanted to really focus in on is because a lot of people are loving Network Insight, obviously, like who wouldn't? But a lot of the times your ASAs, they don't like to be bothered, right? So it's one of those things also to where it's not only you that's going to be monitoring this, right? Like a lot of people are going to have their own Cisco in-house, things that are going to be taking place with the ASAs. They're going to have their own things that are going on with security side that's going to be managing and monitoring what is going on there. So sometimes we have to give it a breath, right? Like we need to make sure that we are fully aware of this and we're able to fill this out. So as you can see here, this is where we can adjust some of those levels of where the CLI communication is. And that's something that I just feel is just kind of like got thrown to the wayside.
Yeah.
So CLI command, if you've noticed, we have been able to do the SNMP, we've been able to do SSH connections, things like that comes across there. Yeah. My main focus nowadays that I think is great is the complexity in these devices that we are talking to now, such as the ASAs, your Nexus, the Fabric. I mean, like when you're talking about the fabrics that are coming through there is a physical and a logical entity. There's things that are going back there, and it's visual. It's so visual. Yeah. But we can't get all that from SNMP.
No, a lot of that's not there because SNMP is basically built around a series of standards, and a lot of these are actually vendor specific. I mean, be it Cisco or Juniper or HP or any of these ones, they actually have their own fabric entities, but there's some slight deviations on that, and for that we actually have to use some type of CLI. Funny enough, I'm looking at this, and that last checkbox there makes me cringe a little bit.
Why?
Use Telnet for CLI port 23 on an ASA. It just, I got shivers.
Kind of be like, oh my gosh. But we have to also keep into realization that a lot of some of the smaller businesses, as well as some federal sides, when they come across there, they have like certain devices that are in certain locations that have to be honed down into strictly, which we may feel like, what? Why are you going to do this? But for them, it makes sense, and we want to make sure that you have those options available to you for the use. Obviously, out of the box, no, we're not going to allow that to happen.
No, but this all goes into ASA as a security device when you really get down to it. This is about ways you can make sure you can still monitor cleanly in a very hardened environment, like you're talking the federal government, or if these actually happen to be the internet-facing firewalls for some type of merchant or something like that. These are the kind of things that you need to know, especially if they're very, very busy. So some of these timeouts to let them actually run a little longer. Maybe the out-of-the-box isn't enough. Maybe they've got 60 different contexts under it. You're not going to pull all that in. Yeah. Maybe you're not going to pull that all in that amount of time.
Definitely.
Or the number of ACLs or any of those things. You need to have this kind of being able to change this a little bit. And these are things that you probably go in, change it up like 30 seconds, save it, see how polling goes, and then lather, rinse, repeat. And
same thing, this is globally. So this is something to think about. This isn't like you're having an issue with one device and we need to go into. This is a global connection issue that you can take care of, which a lot of time has to do with your bandwidth and things that are coming across, as well as all the different complex devices of which they can be in between that are working and doing.
Absolutely.
Now, when we're talking about the CLI connections, now think about it. If you have an ASA and it is talking, it is also doing your on-prem and it's doing everything that's coming across. I mean, it's just checking off hundreds and hundreds of ACLs, and you're looking at this thing and the CPU is like, I'm trying to scream, right? Like, you probably do not want to sit there and say, hey, let me know everything. Let me know everything, like every minute or anything that's coming across there. And sometimes, because it's not like we make, and that's something that I feel that people kind of don't realize a lot of it. When you're just monitoring, we think about it's fine, the 120 seconds, it's fine here. There's rolling data, like especially in Cisco too. That data is not going to change, like for X amount of time. Well, if you're pulling it 3 times in that X amount of time, you're actually skewing data too, because it's going to be the same pull. You're not going to know everything that's going to be changing.
You basically had 2 wasted pulls of data.
Exactly. So you want to make sure, vendor specifically, if you are able to help out and make sure that that stuff is going to go across there. Now here's where you would be making those CLI connection timeouts. So that's one of those where, hey, I'm taking a little bit too much time. I'm going to need to hone this in a little bit. We can do the connection timeout seconds. We can do the rediscoveries. This is all helping you to kind of build up to like, how can I fine tune for my environment? Because this is going to prevent alerts. This is going to prevent connections refused. This is also going to prevent a lot of security things because you're going to have bad attempts that are coming across.
A lot of them sometimes.
And so then we can scroll down and you can start to see a little bit more. And I mean, I know this is a lot to take in for you guys.
And it will change based on your environment. Depending on the products you actually have installed, the entries here are going to be different. This is a system where everything is installed so we can see all of the settings. If you don't have NCM, you're only going to get a portion of those. If you don't have NPM, you're only going to have a portion. If you only have SAM and VNQM, you're going to have different options here. But what's nice about this is, let's say I need something, we have a search because there's so many settings.
Yes.
So many settings.
And that's what I do for like phases. So I can come in here and I'm going to do that now. There we go. So, and here's the great thing on this one.
Yeah.
Talking about the errors again.
Yep.
If I was coming in here, and a lot of times people are like, phase 1 is failing, but I don't care because I'm not even using that portion. Why are we checking for that? What is going on here? Well, then ignore it. You can tell it to. You can actually go in here and say, hey, I'm going to separate the actual error parts and the message types of which that I'm going to exclude so that it's now all green and happy for everybody that's looking at it. But this is part of that. Like, you have to be able to design this to match up to with what you're doing. And if you don't really know where these settings are, you're kind of left behind, right? Because you're just like, I just have to globally change things to the best of my ability, and I need this thing to run like a race car.
Hope it applies unilaterally across everything. Now, I remember years ago, when I was a customer, these used to be stored in like .config and .xml files all over the environment, which was fine. Until you actually wanted to make a change and you wanted to keep that change between upgrades. Then all of a sudden you're going back and changing everything again. The reason we actually did this is so you can actually have all this information in one place and make those changes.
Right, and like for Network Insight, that's why I really wanted to showcase this, is because for all of those different components, your F5, your Cisco ASAs, and your Cisco Nexus, those are going to be in here so that you can fine tune them. The reason why that's important is because as we grow, and with these complex devices and the way that they're trying to show themselves, we need to be self-aware of how we are working with the equipment, because you don't want to just pound, like make sure that you're like getting everything to come across there. You need to live and breathe. And what I tell people is baselines is one of the best things that can help you out as a customer, because it not only gives you a sense, and when I say that, I mean literally it's like, right? Like I get my zen.
Get your zen on.
Because it's like you have to breathe the network and you have to breathe the infrastructure that's coming across there. That way you know when something's irritating you, right? Like, and you know something is off.
You hear that fly buzzing, you're like, something's not right in the force.
Just kind of shine out there, and that's things that we need you to hone in on. So we need to get rid of some of the fluff that maybe you may be experiencing, like those phase 1s with the ASAs.
Yeah, and if it's not important to your environment because you're not using that type of authentication, or you've got a bypass for that, or if you have another type that is an erroneous error that shows up only on these very legacy devices and you need to ignore that very specific phase 2 so you don't get stuff, that's why these options are in here.
Definitely.
Just to kind of weed out all that noise. The faster you cut through the noise, the better you can do your job, the healthier your environment and infrastructure as a whole.
100%. And like F5s, we all know that they're doing their load balancing, they're getting everything in which they're coming across. So these polling job timeouts in minutes, these are vital to you, because if you, like, I know a lot of people will come through here and they look at it and they're like, hey, you know, during the day when this thing is just kind of at its max level, I don't want every 10 minutes, right? Because I don't want to create a problem or do anything outside of it. So it depends on where you're wanting to be and like how much of the elements, you know, how much of the things are you going to actually be polling, so that you can self-adjust that to where you're going to be across there. And so there's one more that I want you guys to look at. Let's go through here. So here is your Cisco, the NCM vulnerabilities that we have here. And if you can see onto the screen, we're actually showing you where the Juniper, where the command timeouts, your Nexus updater, where clause, this is where you're able to gather the information to where you're wanting to kind of synchronize with your Nexus, you know, individually with how it's going through there. Your update patterns, you can see them here with the comma separated and how you can do the Cisco Nexus CPE matching patterns. So this helps you to fine tune where these are coming out, and so that they'd actually be used within the correct location for their view types.
And let's be completely serious here. We've got a where clause here, the Cisco Nexus updater where clause, where nodes.description like Nexus. There are times that vendors don't necessarily put the proper descriptions in based on specific versions of something, and maybe you realize this and you're like, oh, well, they're actually no longer calling it Nexus they're calling it Nexus this. You can actually go in here and change that and then all of a sudden it'll continue to update. Now, granted, we would go and try to remediate that as quickly as possible, but if that's on the vendor side, maybe there's not a whole lot we can do about that.
But here's the great thing, and why I wanted to show this though, is because we understand that things are going to be growing, changing, and things happen, right? But the technology for the CLI commands are going to be there. We want you to be able to grow as well. So if there is changes, if there's something that's going to be coming across, or any kind of a naming, we don't want you to have a misstep. We want to grow with you and be able to be right there by your side. All right, do you think we should dive into a little bit of custom property greatness?
We can. One thing we should say about this is we've been showing you the global settings. If you have a highly distributed environment, like let's say you have an additional polling engine that happens to be in the cloud, or you have an additional polling engine that's in your DMZ exclusively, There's server-specific settings. So take these settings that you would apply globally to the entire Orion platform that you have here, and instead just apply them to this small scope. So that's why something like a DMZ, where you have a bunch of ASAs and maybe F5s, maybe you just want to change it there because maybe the internal stuff doesn't get that level of traffic, and it can handle the regular polling intervals.
And something great too, though, is especially a lot of people load balance on pollers, and so they're in different locations, different bandwidth type, different things that are coming across. So when that happens, this is where you go in there. So it's the same things of what you were seeing before, but we can base it on the polling engine and where we're actually going through. Yeah. So just so you guys can see here, it's the same information, but what we do is we can change it around based upon which polling engine of which that we're wanting to apply there. Now the great thing is if you're into this one and you're seeing some things that are kind of coming a little bit more clear, you can still go down here and say use the global values so that you can reset this. So what that does is it resets this server specific back to the global page.
Yeah, just select that server from the list, save reset globals, and it sends them to those. Or the nice thing I like here is this is it's not maybe the best way to consume it, but if you kind of know someone's been playing in here, it's not that hard to do a stare and compare on this because they're all rolled up under these groups. So these first 3 ASA favorites maintenance interval, there's on one server, there's on the other server, there's on the third server. Done. We know exactly what they are set to.
Summarization is key.
Yeah.
All right, now let's go into my favorite part of custom properties. So we use custom properties all the time.
For everything.
It seems like for everything. So I just went into my all settings right now, and then I'm going to go into my custom properties. What I'm looking for here is the major thing with alerts. I hear it all the time when we're at SWUGs and everything, and no matter how many times that we talk about alerts, I don't feel like we're right on the verge of something here.
There's always like we get 85% there, and that last 15% is going to unfortunately have to be taken across the line by the customer. The reason for that is that we're not going to know your environment specifically. Right. We're going to give you tons of best practices. We're going to give you great setup. We're going to tell you not to email your CIO in the middle of the night on a holiday weekend. However, other than that, like how you actually handle the alerts and the best way to maybe architect them, I will say, this is something Leon says, something I said, I know something you've said, is turn off a lot of the out-of-the-box alerts. They're great, but it's for proof of concept, it's for you understanding. There are some in there that turn them off, check the box, hit copy or duplicate and edit, I believe is the actual thing, and then tweak it for your needs. Right,
and the major thing for that is just like we're talking about this whole time, we need you to fine tune this to your environment. We understand this, there's no, everybody's identical or the same. I designed something differently than what you designed, but we accomplish the same thing. I'm usually better. But,
hey. What she's trying to say is there's no silver bullet.
Right.
There's no one answer to everything.
No. So what we like to talk about is taking a lot of those alerts that you have and condensing them down. I've walked into places that had like 200 and some alerts, and we honed it down to like 12 or 13.
Yeah, because let's be completely serious here. If you got 200 alerts and the worst I've seen recently is 500 plus, is when you really think about it, what's the Orion engine doing at that time? It's sitting there and then saying, well, we've got this alert, I'm supposed to check every 1 minute. So the clock ran over, it's time to check for this alert. So what's it doing? It's running a SQL command back to the database and asking, hey, is this fired? And yes, no, and then has logic after that. 500 of those means you could, if you're doing every minute, that's 500 queries you're running every single minute that maybe you don't need to do.
But you most likely don't need to do.
More than likely not, yeah. There are some cases where that many alerts is necessary. It's for very highly distributed environments. If I can say anything to anyone from years of working with the platform, it's try to prune as much as possible and combine and collapse as many as possible.
So something that we like to do is email to, which you can see here. Now what this means is you're kind of subscribing, right? Like instead of having to change an alert, we actually put this custom property there. This is a custom property that is on your devices themselves that you can mass change.
Yeah, this one's assigned. This one's specifically assigned to nodes. It can also be assigned to applications, interfaces, groups. You can actually build it into reports, though. That seems silly for that one.
Right. So I'm just going to look at this one to view and edit the values because I just want to kind of show you guys where you're at on this one. Now, when we go through here, we can change this email too. I can do this mass, I can do edit multiple values. I can also group this by however I'm wanting to do, right? Now, I put this into the email too. I place everything in here, my address. I just subscribe to an alert. I can put that in all of my alerts by going across there, and now all of a sudden, I'm no longer mass emailing or creating like 50 different alerts for the same thing. No, down, something else. I am creating an alert that's going to go to the people themselves that want to subscribe. I also sometimes do one that's called alert_sub. And that way, if some people like send in and they're like, hey, I really want to be hitting this alert, you know, how can I do that? Well, I subscribe them.
Yeah.
Literally, I put their email address there and just keep adding people that want to be across there to that.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to actually change the alert and create an alert storm because it's within the custom property that I'm making these changes on, and I never even have to do anything to the alert.
Yeah, so the logic of the alert is alert event on node B triggers. One of the actions is send an email address or send an email message. That email message, the body is whatever you want, but the to field is $node.email to.
Exactly.
And that's it.
And that's
You're done. Then you save that and it says, hey, because this is the way you edit alerts, says this is going to be a problem. We're going to send 600 alerts, and you say, no, let's go back and change some of those criteria, and you get it down to a reasonable amount. Then next time you actually need to change the alert so it goes to a different team, you just go to the node and change the custom property. You don't actually have to re-edit that and actually force that run again, which is what triggers these alert storms, which is why the lower the number of the alerts, the generally happier the end users are.
100%. And I know this is an oldie, but it's always a goodie.
It always applies. You can actually take this and extend this out. Like, let's say this is an email to, and earlier we mentioned, oh, well, we've got maybe like provisioning status. This is dev, this is test, this is prod. You know, if it happens to be dev, maybe there's logic that says then that email alert doesn't go out at all. Maybe it has to say prod, and if it does prod, then it goes to this one, and then if there's no response, then it goes to a different one as an escalation point. There's many, many ways you can do this.
Yeah, I've created like E_email for escalation, so that way that's the one that goes across there. The main point is, let's not do our emails in the alert. Let's let the custom properties do that for you. You can always manage and monitor them from here. We can make changes to multiple ones, like I said earlier. By doing this, we are able to condense our alerts, not set up so many of them there, and we have email management going on that's not going to create an alert storm.
So this is just one additional way you can use custom properties. A lot of people use custom properties for
there's so many different ways that can help
segmenting reports, determining who gets information, you know, basically flagging stuff for certain areas that only this team can see stuff if it has this flag on. Yeah, this is the superpower. This is the kind of if the data's in there, there's a way I can work with it, and there's a way I can present it. And I think that's what the tips and tricks sessions really have always been about.
Definitely. Okay, all laughing and fun aside, these tips and tricks are great ways to get use out of your tools that you currently have implemented within your own environment.
Agreed. Out of the box is great. It's a great way to get started, and you get your feet wet and you do everything to your industry standards. But once you have that down, you can really, really start to harness the power of the SolarWinds platform using the information provided in this session.
And that is so true, Kevin. And I hope that sums everything kind of up for you guys today. I hope you've enjoyed this session. I'm Destiny Bertucci.
And I'm Kevin Sparenberg, and thanks for joining us for this THWACKcamp session.